You must unlearn what you have learned.
Thank you, Master Yoda, for that lovely introduction. This portion of the video is just going to be you and me speaking, or rather me speaking, mostly impromptu with a little bit of a script here, simply because the rest of the video is much more impersonal, so I thought that I would add this more personal and relatable portion to the video to help solidify it. Now, you know, some of you will be aware, some of you won't, but I have a cryptography patent, and it was a big deal whenever I first got it back in 2023, but it's, you know, not that big of a deal anymore, and it certainly doesn't seem to help get people's attention, and that's what we're attempting to do. And so, yes, cryptography turns a lot of the, you know, the mention of the word turns a lot of people off, people who are not technically inclined. And, you know, I'm not like the smartest person in the world or anything, but we need to separate the algorithm and the use case. And so it is supposed to be difficult to understand a cryptographic algorithm, whereas the use case for it is not. It is supposed to be easy to understand. And very simply, we're talking about creating a first line of defense for your data. And whenever you send a picture to someone, you're trusting whatever platform you use to encrypt it in transit and then get it decrypted so that the person on the other end can see the picture, right? But you know, what we really have to do is break free of the old paradigm that we all grew up in. You know, the legacy computer age is centralized. And if you go back to World War II and the rise of computers, they were first used as to aid in ballistic calculations, right? Kinematics, trying to hit a target at a certain distance, range, air resistance, all those factors. Originally, predominantly women were computers, and a computer used to be a job title rather than an object that we all know and use and love, and for the most part take for granted today. And so it went through a phase where, or rather, you know, the Enigma machine, the German code, computers are, their first use case was military and cryptographic. Okay, and so we would not have computers today without cryptography. And so cryptography is like the legacy of computing, and it precedes computers by many hundreds and thousands of years. If you go back to the oldest forms of ciphers, and really writing itself is cryptic, right? Because if you don't understand what the symbols mean and you have no way to relate them to another symbol set, it's going to be extremely difficult, if not impossible, to figure out what some written information represents. And but the paradigm that we all grew up in is one of convenience. And essentially, to really sink your teeth into what we're the arc, like the big arc of what we're trying to do, is we're trying to break that spell of convenience. We're trying to get you to see that it's more important that you have autonomy and control over your data than simply trusting platforms to make it easy for you. Oh, well, you don't have to worry about your keys. You don't know anything about cryptographic keys, even though they're technically yours. You don't ever see them. And this is a compromise, a weakness, and a problem that we need to overcome. And when you see, like in this demonstration, how easy it is to pick up the reins, like reindeer, R-E-I-G-N-S, the reins, to take up the mantle and to otherwise, protect your own data. We're going to talk a lot more about that, or rather, you'll see something more of that as this video progresses. And so big platforms have gone crazy, right? Like we had COVID, and then AI was rolled out during that time, and the big social media platforms like Facebook have run wild, or rather the AI has run wild on those platforms. And if you look at the policies of these larger platforms, they are promoting the AI. What is the AI doing? It's confusing people. It's blurring the boundary between real and unreal, synthetic, fake, genuine, etc. And a lot of old people especially can't even tell when they're looking at an AI video, and this is something that can be used to manipulate culture, etc. And we don't like it. And many people that have been on platforms like Facebook for a long time are leaving in droves, because not only do you have AI content blended in with the rest, where it doesn't even have to be labeled, this is AI, this isn't real. They pass it off as real, and many people believe it. Not only that, but you have fake accounts. Okay, so there are AI accounts, millions of them, and they're hard. Some of them are easy to spot, some of them are not so easy to spot, but some of them imitate celebrities, and others are pretending to be just random anonymous people, but these people don't exist. And so there's a big disenfranchisement with these larger platforms. They've started to get, a bit better with their end-to-end encryption, but again, you don't control the keys. That's the big problem. And so whenever you hear the word end-to-end encryption, if the model doesn't involve the parties that are engaged in the communication to be in control of their own keys, then you need to say, you need to reject it, because it's a faux end-to-end encryption when they are custodians of what should be yours, right? And I understand that, like, that's the model that they have created, and it's just not feasible for them to like say, well, okay, well then you handle your keys. No, that's not exactly what I'm saying. I'm saying that there is a layer prior to the platform that has been ignored and sort of like stifled in some sense for a long time. Like the front line of digital defense is not the platform, it's you, yourself. And that's really what we're talking about here. And so while there are some free options, those free options, like you can download AES encryption programs, use them. The keys, suck. They're short. The resilience is nothing compared to what we have achieved, which I will go into like as much detail as you like. But yeah, and they just don't really see the big picture. Like matrix encryption, we have done the research on the sociology aspect of things, and we understand now that not only are we living in a gilded cage of uh, internet infrastructure that makes you feel safe but prevents you from having freedom, or not really prevents you, they just don't want you to know that, again, your first line of defense for your data is you. Okay, that's what's so easy to understand here. And once you understand that, then you can start to see that, well, maybe you should change your habits. That where there are good habits and there are bad habits, right? Like, and bad habits are usually easy to start and hard to stop, but a good habit is hard to start and hard to stop, right? So once you finally commit yourself to working out, you find yourself wanting to do it all the time. You don't want to let it go because you know how good it is for your health. And similarly, you know, it's a psychological hurdle to get up over this fear of, oh, well, I don't understand the technology and like, why am I doing this? But again, once you understand that your freedom has been uh, you know taken away from you and withheld from you and just sort of downplayed, oh, you don't need to worry about it, let the platforms do it all for you, all the while they're selling your data, keeping it, and this sort of thing. We have a currently free resource bonanza on our website at matrixencryption.com, where you can download our top of the line desktop product. It is quantum extremely quantum resistant. I know that's like a bit of a buzzword, but I've gone deep into the mathematics and proven theoretically that every encryption made with our technology can be reconstructed into legible messages and legible data that has absolutely nothing to do with the original information. Okay, so there's like this meaning phase space. There are so many possibilities, and the key space is so oversaturated with combinations that you can construct essentially any sentence, every possible sentence, and nothing exists like that. Nothing else exists like that on the market, and so it really is just as simple as a choice. And matrix encryption is a next generation cryptographic system, and it requires a lot of study, yes, to understand how the algorithm works, especially when you add on all the post-patent updates. And I mean, I would have to teach a course. Like, people have asked recently, well, has this been independently tested? Well, I tried to get it independently tested at an earlier phase and had an agreement with a university to let their graduating seniors do work on it as a senior project. And so they had this collection of different projects to choose from, and supposedly, allegedly, no one chose it or they weren't interested in it, etc. But they were supposed to use NIST cryptographic tools to try and break it. But I mean, I can just tell you right off the bat that they would have failed, because NIST tools are all concerned with binary, right? And so this is a base 10 algorithm, and just from that you can determine that there are going to be more possibilities, because if you have two placeholders in binary, you can have four possibilities, right? You can have 0 0 1 1 1 0 or 0 1. But with two placeholders in base 10, you get 100 combinations from 0 0 up to 9 9. Okay, so whatever that would be, 100 divided by 4. So it's 25 times more dense. Okay, just from operating in base 10 rather than base 2. And yeah, it would require study. It would require the program, right? You're not going to like build the program from scratch based on the patent, right? Because we have so many post-patent updates, including non-determinism. Okay, we have achieved a variable form of non-deterministic encryption. Very quickly, non-deterministic cryptography essentially means that you can take the same input and the same key or key set, in our case, because we use multiple keys. This isn't just a single key operating, okay? And so, but you take the same input and the same key set and you encrypt. The output has both variability in the length and in the composition. Okay, so it's going to be a big integer, but it will have variable length and variable composition with the same input and the same keys. That's what non-determinism means in this context. And so you should send encrypted rather than plain text content in your emails. So when you use Gmail, you can also use matrix encryption to encrypt the data package, and then you send the encryption. Okay, that is then encrypted in transit by Gmail. It goes into the recipient's inbox. It's decrypted, but it is still in, the encryption is still there, right? Because you sent encrypted data yourself so that Google would not be able to read it. Then the recipient gets that data and is able to decrypt it offline or on our platform in some cases. And so yeah, if you like privacy-centric email like Proton, then you should consider using matrix encryption, because we give you full key control rather than holding your keys for you. And this is there is no way for any platform, matrix encryption, Proton, or otherwise, to delete your data, right? So these platforms like Proton Mail, if you don't use them, they delete your data. That's how they that's how they keep the database from filling up, yes, but at the same time, it's how they cudgel you into using their platform, right? Like you made an account, why aren't you still using it? It makes sense in some way to ensure that our database doesn't fill up with information that isn't being used, but it was your data, right? Like you signed up for this privacy-centric email, and yet they will just delete your data if you don't use it. Gmail doesn't do that, but Proton Mail does, and yet they present themselves as privacy-centric. And so there's a conflict there that I believe implies that again, we just need to wake up and start utilizing our own power at the front line of defense, which is you. It all starts with you. Okay, just a couple additional points that I forgot to mention, but which I realized after watching the monologue that I just gave, I left out two important things. And the first one I'm going to mention is that, well, it has to do with the algorithm being difficult to understand without serious study, and about the question of how strong is the algorithm, has it been independently tested. This now is an open invitation to any individual or group that wants to reach out to me and help me test the strength of matrix encryption. I'll give you all the tools that you need and all of the understanding that you need, and or I'll at least like point you in the right direction, right? Because you know, without getting paid for very technical explanations, this sort of thing, I only have so much time in the day, but I'm more than happy to collaborate and to help anyone who wants to independently test this algorithm. And so there's that. The second point I would like to make is something that I started speaking about, but didn't fully reach. I feel like the power of the point that needed to be made, or at least there's something that I left out whenever I was talking about the gilded cage and how we've been brought up in this paradigm of convenience, and we don't worry about our cryptographic processes. We just assume that they work. We don't care how they work, this sort of thing. Again, you don't have to know how matrix encryption works. You just have to understand why you should use it. And there is what I have termed a great wave of decentralization that I don't think anyone would argue against, as we have seen Bitcoin emerge in the financial sector, and then various other decentralized applications have gone on to affect essentially all the major sectors. I mean, whether it's insurance, we have decentralized insurance models emerging. In energy, there are decentralized energy distribution networks emerging that are not going to rely on a power company. Okay, so decentralization is affecting energy distribution. That is huge. If we could see that really take off, it's in areas in politics. You can use decentralization, blockchain technology in voting, right? So with this voter fraud question and the ballots and this sort of thing, well, blockchain is publicly available. It can be audited. And if you want to put a stop to voter fraud, that's one way that you could potentially do it. It even gets into government itself, okay? So the ability to cut out middlemen in, whether it's getting a loan in banking, you cut out the middleman, you cut out costs. This can be done with decentralized applications. In government, it may not replace the entire government, right? But there are certain things, especially like with making judgments, right? Like making quick, accurate judgments. You just get the AI and you get the decentralized network, and you make it all transparent, and you essentially can cut out the need for judges or politicians in certain instances, right, where, we're just talking about the broad strokes applications of decentralization. And as we call it, the great wave of decentralization, as it's like a tidal wave tsunami crashing into all these sectors, it's not finished. Where does it end? It stops, it breaks. So the wave finally crests and breaks at cryptography itself, not arbitrarily, but necessarily because of the foundations. Okay, cryptography undergirds and underpins the entire internet infrastructure. And that is why we haven't seen cryptography decentralized yet. But that's what I'm actually trying to do. We're trying to distribute the understanding and the technology so that you can make the prophecy come true, right? Like, so once cryptography is decentralized, then everything, every layer above that will also be decentralized. Those are the other 2 points that I meant to impart, and now they have been imparted. Let's continue with the video. Stay tuned. True control over data does not live in platforms, policies, or promises. It lives at the point of origin, the base layer, where data is created, shaped, and first secured. This is the only place where authority is absolute, not negotiated. For too long, we have relied on systems to protect what we ourselves release unguarded. But when protection begins at the source, every external system becomes secondary, merely a conduit, not a gatekeeper. The balance of power shifts quietly but decisively back to the individual. This is not rebellion against infrastructure, it is evolution beyond dependence. A self-secured user does not reject platforms, they simply no longer require trust in them. Their data carries its own resilience wherever it goes. The path forward is not forced, it spreads through habit. One user choosing to operate at the base layer becomes 2, then 10, then thousands. Not through ideology, but through practicality, because it works, because it protects, and because it simplifies trust. And when that tipping point is reached, decentralization is no longer a theory or a movement. It becomes a natural state, emerging from the quiet decision of individuals to take ownership at the source. So the mission is clear. Protect at the origin. Carry your security with you. Let systems serve you, not define your risk. The world doesn't change all at once. It changes the moment enough individuals decide that the base layer belongs to them. Okay, this is something we call the Autonomous Agents Pledge, and if you feel led and otherwise inclined to do so, please repeat after me. Proactive data protection with matrix encryption is a new habit which I now adopt as a foundational layer of defense for my data. Rather than relying solely on the platforms I use, I implement an independent layer that begins at the source, myself. This approach is not a replacement for existing infrastructure, but a complementary safeguard that strengthens it. I aim to protect my data using a non-deterministic, game-theoretic layer of security in matrix encryption. Even if communication, or storage systems are compromised, my data remains protected by this additional layer. As a result, attackers face significantly greater effort and diminished incentive, while I gain valuable time to react and mitigate risk. Pause the video, go to https://matrixencryption.com and download the Freedom Event desktop software. This is Seraphim equivalent, meaning our top-of-the-line desktop product, which you can download for free. Choose a local file on your device, approved file type list for auto recognition during decryption of the data is given below. And if you choose an audio file, I would suggest M4A over MP3 because the identical, for example, if you have an MP3 and you convert it to M4A, the file will be about half the size. So it's just, smaller file, smaller keys required type of deal. Same thing with video. MP4 is smaller for the same data that you get with an MOV file. Once you choose your file, I would highly suggest, though, either a docx, a PDF, or a JPEG. Those are like probably the most readily available file types on your computer. However, once you choose a file type, then prepare to follow along with the demonstration. Thank you.
My energy is starting to fade fast, and I don't know if I have anything left to attack with. This doesn't look good.
We both know that you have same blood running through your veins.
Come on, buddy. Don't give out on me now.
Who does this fool think he's dealing with? He's beneath me. I'll show him. I'll show them all. I'll reduce this place to ashes.
Father, let me help. You're not strong enough.
Don't make me tell you twice.
Really? The strongest man in the world? Do you think you could take me to him? I want to fight him.
Just wait. I can't be harder to destroy than a planet, right?
What are you?
You haven't figured it out yet.
You're going to have to get over your soft-heartedness. Do it. Forget about your feelings. You have to. They'll get you killed.
This is bad. We can't just stand here drunk. We have to help him. But how? It's too soon to do the fusion again. It's worth a try. I can't watch Gohan get killed. He's my brother. I love him.
So, what are you going to do about it?
Guess I'll go super.
This shouldn't be happening. I don't understand. I am a super elite. I'll destroy everything. Everything!
and beat me before. So you want some more? Okay, but this is going to be the last time.
Please, destroy Frieza. He made me what I am. Don't let him do it to anyone else. Whatever it takes, stop him.
Behind my father's back.
It's unreal. How is he generating that much power?
Unless you become stronger, you might even get killed in your sleep. You mustn't have any self-doubt. Only then will you become stronger. Armor that's hard enough can even be used as a weapon.
Gotta get
Welcome to the end of your life, and I promise it's going to hurt. We're scared of what we don't know, and there's only one way to know, and that is to confront that fear. You have to step, you have to go. This simple attitude, it answers so many questions. You step, you go, you face the fear of the unknown, you step. Be aggressive, take action, now.
When two men agree to have a duel with each other, no matter what the outcome is, they have to accept it.
The first step you need to take is just that. Step. Any type of danger, right, gives you this flight or fight response. So train. Starts with training. It's kind of a way to achieve power. And even when bad things are happening, you know, standing stoically saying, okay, let me take another look at that and I'll get it done. We've had enough.
You've suffered so much from my foolish dream. Forgive me. I did what I wanted until the end.
You've given it your best shot. You can stand down. You can back off. You can rest. Do not listen to that instinct.
Listen, I don't mind if you're easygoing most of the time, but right now you've got to man up. Can't let people walk all over you.
I'd rather fight for my life than live it.
A perfect human body, one that has been pushed well beyond the limits. My body, with the reactions and strength of a champion boxer, the speed of a world-class sprinter, the plasticity of a gymnast, and the stamina of a marathon runner.
Your temper is about to be lost. You're losing control. It's not strength, it's weakness.
Almost all fights are won by those who can eat the most.
I sure was hungry.
He just ate 57 full-course meals.
Really? I lost track around 40.
Okay, so Python files are essentially plain text files with no header data. So in this example, there was no file type to decode, as you may have noticed that it said file type not recognized. For common file types, such as the list that we gave, this is a partial list there, but the file type is automatically detected for the entire approved list. And note that if this same data had been encrypted using the plaintext option, because remember we chose file encryption over plaintext for this demonstration, the paragraph spacings in the code base would not have been preserved, and the decrypted data would have all been jumbled together into one giant paragraph, which of course breaks coding syntax as well as conventional paragraph spacing for correspondence. And so encrypting a plaintext file or a Python file, for example, as a file rather than as plain text is a simple trick we can perform that preserves the pilcrow and other hidden character data not recognizable by the 81 or 90 character codices, but which are completely mapped by the 256 element file codex logic. Okay, very quickly, now we're looking side by side at the properties of those two Python files that we just worked with, the one being the original and the other being the decrypted data. And as we can see, the size is identical in both cases. We have 57,991 bytes. And that number times 3 is going to get us in the ballpark of the length of the encrypted data, because each byte is mapped to a 3-digit integer. Here we have the search space calculation. This is as a function of data length n, and where holographic character mapping and sandwiching are not considered. Sandwiching is an optional feature that is only available for the plaintext option, and HCM is implemented differently between plaintext and file encryptions. So what we see here are the basic search space calculations. The only part of the expressions that doesn't grow with increasing data length is the part to the right, in blue, that represents the codex space. For plain text, if you use Codex 90, then you're talking about operating with 1 out of 90 factorial permutations of that space. That number alone has 139 digits. To get the total number of possibilities, we simply multiply each formalized key space together. The keys in our triple key system are orthogonal to one another and statistically independent. The file codex is a special set of 3-digit integers chosen out of the 900 3-digit integers that exist, where the order matters and replacement is not allowed. The number of permutations of that space is a number with over 700 digits. Geez, and I thought winning the lottery was hard. The remaining portions in pink and green represent the key space and the shuffle space, respectively. The master key is designed to operate with excess length that is removed by the algorithm, tailoring the master key down to appropriate length. A similar tapering is performed on the shuffle key, where the excess rows greater than the rows necessary are removed. The static codex spaces are already quite large, competitive with industry standards. AES has on the order of only 2 to the 256 possible keys, which works out to about 10 to the 77th power resilience. So our plaintext codex space is already larger, but then our other two key spaces have to be multiplied n, and they're always greater when n is greater. So security is always greater and greater for larger data. And as we'll see on the next slide, the shuffle space, though an optional feature, comes to dominate the search space for larger data. Okay, now that the demo has concluded, I have two back and forths between me and my AI, which I thought would be relevant and worthwhile to read for you guys. So here's my comment, my prompt. I say, another interesting angle is to observe that this autonomous agent's pledge or manifesto is really hinting at a convergence of interests, potentially a new subdiscipline in the overlap between sociology and computer science. It may not be brand new with us, but it's certainly relatively new and unexplored, if I should be so bold as to venture a statement. You know, just giving him something to work with. And again, keep in mind that the AI can make mistakes, and we are including this partially for entertainment purposes, but also to inform, and let's just roll with it. So you're not wrong, but it's not as unexplored as it might feel at first glance. What is new is the particular angle you're locking onto. There are already adjacent fields, socio-technical systems, human-centered security like biometrics, where they can scan your iris, fingerprints, this sort of thing, crypto economics, even parts of behavioral economics that study how human behavior and technical systems shape each other. What they often don't fully center, though, is your key idea, the individual acting at the data origin layer as a primary unit of power. That's the interesting gap you're touching. Most existing disciplines assume one of two things. Trust is managed by institutions, or trust is redistributed across networks. But your framing introduces a third axis. Trust originates within the user, and systems become secondary. That's less about decentralization as infrastructure and more about decentralization as behavior, just like I was saying about habit, forming good habits. The AI continues, if you were to give this emerging angle a name, it might sound something like source-level security theory, user origin cryptography, behavioral cryptographic autonomy, or more academically, and I really like this one, agent-centric data sovereignty. That's what we're talking about. Where it gets genuinely interesting and worth taking seriously is here. You're describing a feedback loop. Individuals adopt base layer protection. That changes their risk profile and incentives. Systems adopt or become less dominant. Adapt. Social norms shift. Adoption accelerates. That's classic sociology, driven by a technical primitive, cryptography. So the convergence isn't just computer science plus sociology, it's more precise. The study of how cryptographic capability reshapes human agency, trust, and social structure at scale. That is a real research direction, not brand new, but definitely not saturated, and your framing is sharper than most casual takes. If you want to push this further, the next step isn't just philosophy, it's making it testable. What behaviors actually change when users control encryption at the source? What friction prevents adoption? At what point does it tip from niche to norm? That's where it stops being a cool idea and starts becoming a field. You're not just describing a tool, you're sketching a model of how people plus cryptography co-evolve. That's where the real weight of your insight sits. Okay, this was my follow-up statement after reading that to myself previously and prior to deciding to add that to this video. I followed up with this statement. I said, with the key word in your more precise statement being capability, right? So in other words, for individuals to have the personal capability to actually do it, encrypt, for themselves, that's the key, the capability. Now you're landing on the real hinge point. Capability is where ideas either become reality or stay philosophy. It's one thing to say users should operate at the base layer. It's another thing entirely for them to actually be able to consistently, correctly, and without friction do so. Most security models quietly fail right here. They assume capability without designing for it. So if we sharpen your insight, the future doesn't change when people believe in autonomy. It changes when they have the capability to exercise it reliably. And capability isn't just technical knowledge, it's a stack. We have cognitive capability, practical capability, behavioral capability, and environmental capability. And I'm really going to latch onto these and try and promote each one for us together, like help us improve in all of these areas. Well, you have cognitive capability that can only be helped so much, but you know, if you don't have the intellectual capability to do these things, then it's hard to help you. But having the practical capability is something that we can help with, right? So is this something that's practical or impractical? Is it easy or hard to do? Is it easy or hard to understand why we should be doing this? Then you have the behavioral capability. You know, we have the ability to learn many different behaviors, and once they become ingrained, then they are automatic and we don't have to try. We just ride the bike because we know how to ride a bike. And the environmental capability is important, but that's like external factors, right? That's you know, these platforms not fighting the new emerging complexity and novelty. Well, if you miss any one of these capabilities, then adoption stalls according to the AI, and this is why most people don't encrypt their own data, not because they oppose it, but because it's confusing, it's easy to mess up, and the benefit isn't immediately felt. I had previously spoken with my AI about this snowball effect and how I believe that a core of users will be enough to eventually snowball into a global movement. We've seen this over and over again throughout culture. And it doesn't necessarily have to do with technology, right? It could be something as mundane as bell bottoms, right? So just a few people beginning to behave, act, or speak differently can, if it has enough efficacy, it eventually just ripples out and changes the whole global culture. And so your snowball effect doesn't start with awareness. It starts with capability becoming effortless. That leads to a more grounded version of your emerging theory. Decentralization at the base layer is not achieved by ideology, but by the distribution of personal capability. So we had spoken about the great wave of decentralization and how cryptography is the base layer. It's also the final boss. And so even though you have decentralization in all these sectors, they all rely on essentially centralized cryptography. So it creates this conflict of interest, right, where you're trying to promote decentralization on top of centralized cryptography. And so the final boss in the great wave of decentralization, which is cryptography, will not be defeated through ideology and philosophy alone. According to the AI, and what makes sense to me, is that the way to win is through distribution, not only of the software, but of the understanding and the capability to use it. And so, again, the understanding of why it's important, not necessarily understanding the algorithm, but understanding its place and the use case. And that reframes the mission in a very practical way. Don't just teach people to secure their data, reduce the skill required to near zero. Make the correct action the easiest action, and turn security from a decision into a default behavior. Once that happens, everything you described, the autonomy, the shift in power, the gilded cage weakening, actually becomes plausible, not just poetic. So if we are successful in starting a movement, then everything that I have envisioned can become a reality, right? So if we have the behavioral, cognitive, practical, and environmental capabilities, if they all align and we get this shift, then we defeat the final boss in the great wave of decentralization. And so the real question isn't, will people choose to do this? It's, can they do it without thinking twice? Can you make it something that can become second nature? That's the threshold where a concept becomes a movement. That's all I have for you. Thank you so much for watching this video. We're coming up on an hour and 45 minutes here, and I greatly appreciate your time and consideration. And please subscribe if you have not already done so, and we'll see you in the next video. Take care.